Intuitive viewers, it's just me and Lucy in the background. And we have a special guest today. It's my sister, Kristen.
Hi, everybody. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Kris is from Cardvoyant Kris. It's a channel that, a sister channel, I guess. She goes through all of the cards in the tarot deck and teaches you how to read tarot, and then she also does readings, and she does goes into kind of a lot of spiritual discussions on her channel. So check it out because I always do. I watch every video, and yeah, so I hope everybody's doing well. Happy Easter, Kris.
Happy Easter. Thank you.
A not so happy Easter as everyone's locked
Weird
down.
Easter.
Yeah. So, in fact, Kris, I wanted to ask you because I did a video yesterday. It's up today, but I talked about these churches and what's going to go on today. And I wonder, we didn't talk about this, but I wonder if you could just pull a card right now for that, for what's going to happen today, and kind of the general energy around the churches that are actually going to try to meet today. Because I got yesterday that there were some that were going to meet, regardless of the, stay in place orders.
Right.
So I wonder if you could just maybe pull a card to look at that, and
I will.
Maybe talk about it. Okay.
Okay. And you can talk for a second while I shuffle if you want, but I will just ask about the energy behind churches that are meeting today in defiance.
Okay.
Okay, so I pulled two cards.
Okay.
So.
Okay. What have you got?
Well, it's kind of crazy. So I got two major arcana cards. The first is, and I got this the other day when I was talking about the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
The Temperance card.
Right.
And the other is the Wheel of Fortune card.
Okay.
Which is weird to only pull two cards and get two major arcana cards. That's kind of weird. But so let me talk about them really quick. The Temperance card is all about balance, and this is about free will, which we talked about maybe discussing, but this is very much about, it's a little bit about free will, what people do, what they want to do and what they're allowed to do. And that's just how it is, that we have to accept that. Although there will be some places probably where there has been a crackdown.
Right.
So there is that's a matter of our realizing this is going to happen.
Right.
But it's also a matter of balance of consequences. This is, if something happens, you can't expect the consequence not to happen, no matter what your intentions are. That's the balance here. There's going to be consequences for this happens. In fact, it feels like there's going to be some that are like bad. It's going to be very bad.
I got a similar, very similar thing to that yesterday. And that,
and then I'll say too, the wheel, so we'll do this pretty quickly. The Wheel of Fortune card is all about the ups and downs of life. It's about balance too, but it's about the ways in which we sort of suffer these things. And it's a lot about too expectation, because among certain religious groups, and this may be not even the religion, but a religious group, like even congregationally, there's this idea that most things that are bad happen because of punishment. And that's part of it when they're going to church, is because they feel like we have to do this so that we won't be punished.
Right.
And they have to understand that it's not punishment. Not that some of them will come to understand this. Some others, it'll just reinforce what they already believe. But it's not punishments. Mm-hmm. It's the natural order of things. It's consequences. It's also about things we take on in life. But life would be meaningless if we just tried to sail with nothing happening, and we tried to do everything good, and so then everything good was bestowed upon us. That would defeat the purpose of life.
Right.
The Wheel of Fortune is a reminder that this this is how life is. And we're in this this collective experience of that right now. So it feels overwhelming, but this is how life is. Ups and downs, good times, what we feel like are good times and bad times, negatives and choices and all that kind of thing. So that is part of the mindset behind them going to church, is they feel like if we don't, we might be punished. And if we do, showing our goodness and our dedication and our, worshipfulness and all that kind of thing, then we will be spared, or we'll have good things happen to us. And that the Wheel of Fortune card is just like, it's not how it works. And that's
right.
And that's not why you would, hopefully that's not why you're going to church anyway, is to avoid bad things happening to you. That's
right.
That's, yeah.
Well, and so, and how do you think that, because I kind of think that there might be people during this time that have been very faithful and have been, good, quote unquote Christians, that kind of, thing, or evangelicals, but they have considered themselves to be good Christians. Don't you think that, I would assume kind of during World War II, a similar thing happened with the concentration camps, where there'd be a crisis of faith.
I would imagine.
And because people put, all of their, and I really feel like what's going on now is kind of a clash between science and medical and, this stuff, and religion. Where do they kind of, they're, because I think that the whatever you want to call it, paranormal, new age spirituality, it meets science. It's a partner with science, because nature is part of that as well. It's all connected. Everything's connected. And I think they think of it as you can have one or the other.
Yes, that you have to have one or the other.
Right.
And so I think exactly spot on. I think that's exactly it. It's not one or the other. In fact, it's neither one is like complete. People who put all of their faith in science are losing a bit of the sort of like the miraculousness of life, the intention behind it. Because if you're overly scientific, then when you get to that atheistic bent, then you're reducing the meaning of life. And so it's not one or the other. It has to be a blend. And without the other, either one is incomplete. And it's not just incomplete, it's like off. It's not right.
It's not balanced. And I think that thing of balance comes up again. Exactly.
Yeah, the Temperance card. Exactly. That's, there is a balance. Very, it's like we make everything too hard. We make everything too hard.
Right. Right. And so, I think more often, at least right now, and maybe this is going to change in the future, but I feel like all of the time spirituality reaches into science in giving inspiration to scientists, to figure things out.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that, but I feel like the other needs to happen now, where science kind of reaches into spirituality, into
Definitely.
the paranormal. Isn't it Nikolai Tesla?
Tesla.
Didn't he say something about that?
He did, and I can't remember the exact quote, but yeah. But Einstein did that too. He had a phrase that he used when he'd get to a certain point, and then it was like, I can't remember what he called it. Somebody will know, but it's like the great unknown, or the great.
Right.
It was what he called sort of the God concept, and he recognized that there was a point that you get to where there's more that is needed besides just very pure science,
Right.
So.
And I think that Nikolai Tesla was something like, if you don't go into that realm, then you're missing half the point. You're missing it. You're missing.
Exactly.
You can't get to the end of it. So you need to look into that.
Yeah.
So that kind of let's kind of talk just a little bit about free will. I get a lot of people confused about free will, and it also is there's some fear behind it, because it's kind of like, and it's all due to because our channels kind of got started with Donald Trump, the whole Donald Trump thing, because people were so scared. And we knew, it was going to get bad, and we kind of knew, but the reason I started the channel, I tried to get Kris to start hers first, so she wouldn't. I had to. I felt like I had to.
But you're so good at it. So.
Well, neither here nor there. But I felt like he was gonna go. He was gonna go, and so I think people are, because elections are free will. People are confused as to, well, is he gonna go, or is our free will other people, a more negative side can have free will. They have free will too, so they can tilt or they can steal it. Is that free will? Because I feel like if it's stolen, your free will is stolen too. That's not free will. I guess it's free will of the people that steal it. I guess that's there. But like you said, there are always consequences to your free will. It's not just free will and that's it. But I always
also. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say about the only thing I was going to say, and then you can.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. To comment on, I always have said that he's gonna go, but the how and the when is up to us. That's our free will part.
Right.
I
do think that there's a difference between what we want and our free will. Because our free will is the exercise of doing what we want. It's the actual doing of it.
Right.
But that's very personal. That's each individual. And I think that's been one of the biggest things about Donald Trump is that, and the whole just situation now, and even like with the pandemic situation now, is that feeling that everything is so overwhelming that you're powerless. And so often we're thinking like, how do I change the election and stuff like that? But it always comes down to our free will, in the sense that all the power that we have is locked within ourselves. Like we influence the world by changing ourselves. There's nothing truer than that. And there's not much more that you can do. I mean, different people have different voices that, echo to different levels or different numbers of people. But even then, it's a matter of your free will, your personal power, and then it goes out from there. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So, well, and I think that and I've gotten this message in readings. I've read it in Eckhart Tolle, but it's the idea that you have to start with you first, your attitude, your energy, etc. Because anything you do will be infused with that.
Right.
It will be infused with that energy. So if you're off, and if you're angry, and you're bitter and miserable and stuff, whatever you do, even if it's working on an election, it will be infused with that. That energy will be infused into that project or into those people. Right. So you're right. It's so important, and it's the first place to start. Yeah. Is us. And it's the last place. I mean, that everything comes from that. So you have to, exactly.
Yeah, the power of intention. Yeah. And there is a certain amount of trust in that. When you were talking, we talk about faith, and on Easter Sunday, there is a certain amount of trust that you have to have in that. And, hopefully as a collective, we move in that direction. But I think sometimes you feel that shift in energy just as more and more people grab onto that. But obviously there's been people throughout history that in their lifetimes exerted their free will and tried to do stuff, and it wasn't, that's not the way that like the rest of the world went, but they still had power within themselves because of their own free will and their own faith and their belief in themselves, their belief in their personal power, which is what Eckhart Tolle talks about so much. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's move on to, let me ask you, I think that's great. And let me ask you because I know that a lot of people, and I get emails all the time, people saying, I'm so worried about the election. So why don't you pull a card to kind of, or a card or two to kind of talk about the actual election, the energy behind it. What's going to happen? How are we going to receive it? However you want to ask it, and then you can kind of share the question you asked, and then your
okay. All right.
Results.
Just a second here. Okay.
Okay.
So what I asked was, and just to let you know, when we first started doing this, and I knew that you were going to ask a few questions with the cards, I just heard there's like, it's going to be 2 cards every time. It's going to be 2 cards. So
okay,
that's what I did again. I've got 2 cards. The first one is the 10 of Wands. So what I asked was just what about the election? What's up with the election? But also like, what can we know at this time? Right. So as you can see, this 10 of Wands, I mean, it's like, it feels like a burden because it's about all the work that has been done, all the work that needs to be done, and that there's work to be done. It's all about passion, and creative energy. And it just feels like work. Part of that work is just like us getting through it. It's like, this is just going to be a difficult time. And so many people, like, there's just going to be like this, such an opposition, such forcefulness against people who are trying to move forward. It's just like, it just feels like odious, just like these people that are just working so hard to combat us. In fact, it feels like we're like the figure, and like it's just our head down, and we have these things coming at us, but we're also pushing. It's like the same things in a way, because I mean they're very different things, but they're like in the same position. Like we're talking about government and governance and those kinds of things. And so there's like one force against, and we're pushing forward. But I guess the good news is that we can only see us. It's like a force, but the figure on this side that we see is kind of like we the people. There's so many more of us. We have so much. The force is so much stronger with us. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and you can talk. We're going to talk a little bit about using your intuition, reading the cards. And when you held up that card, my intuition, reading the card, because I'm not really professional card reader like a lot of people, but my intuition was telling me that exactly what you said. But that figure is it's almost our desire for a new beginning, meeting the moment. Is our desire for a new beginning going to win out over this moment?
Right.
That's
exactly
it.
That's exactly it. So then this will be interesting to see your interesting on this card.
I don't get it all the time. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
So it's a major arcana card, and I love this card. No, it's a great card.
Okay.
It's the Chariot.
Oh, right.
And I've been feeling this for a while, and I don't know about you, and I've talked about it on my channel a little bit, but okay, so the Chariot is this powerful figure. I mean, he holds the magician's like wand in his hand, and he's very connected to the spiritual in that he's almost like, talk about destiny. It's like he's got the forces of sort of like guides behind him that are like, okay, this is the moment to rise to it and everything. But it's also very fast moving. It's just coming in. And I just feel like there's this younger male, I've said this again, and I've said it to you personally, like to you guys, I think you and Pam, coming in that we don't even see yet. I mean, not that he's not known. He's not like, complete, who is this guy? He's in the political field. I mean, I have a feeling about who it is. But the thing is, it's this younger male figure. I guess it could be, maybe it's up in the air now. Maybe it's not who it is, who just sort of rides in. I do not feel, and I have not felt, that Joe Biden is going to be the nominee. I love Bernie Sanders, but I did not feel that he was going to be the nominee. but it is this younger male figure who comes in and is able and actually represents sort of a large part and almost the best of the progressive movement. There's rather progressive, and yet he has sort of the respect of some of the old guard. If for nothing else, they can see that he's a really viable and good candidate. So I feel like he sort of rides in, and it's just so, first of all, he can get everybody behind him, but he's also so clearly different than Donald Trump. And I just feel, we were talking, or you have mentioned before, this very first vision that you had of Trump falling as if he were King Kong. So in that vision of the King Kong kind of, but it was Donald Trump being like in the King Kong mode falling.
Yes.
That's how it feels like with this younger figure, is that he just falls because this other person is just so clear and so resolute and so his principles and his policies and his platform are like this, and Donald Trump can't refute it, and he can't argue it, and he looks like a fool doing so. He looks like babbling, and so that fall is just really fast and humiliating, like embarrassing, because he cannot, his old tricks, all the things he does that we're all familiar with now. When this started, how many, years ago, but for a lot of us a lot of people who hadn't paid attention to Donald Trump, his way of talking, the things he does, the way he discounts things, the same phrases he uses and stuff, it was all new. And now we're all familiar with it. And this figure, even that comes in, is able to further deconstruct that. And it just seems almost silly. And that humiliation is the biggest fall for him, because he cannot recover. That's his biggest fear, is not being the guy in charge, of not being, of being embarrassed. And it's totally going to happen.
And
so
it's totally going to happen. And so is this breaking news? You don't think that even though Joe Biden is the presumed winner, that he's going to be the nominee?
I don't think he is. I don't know how you feel about it. I'd be interested to know. I feel like there's something that comes I don't know if it's health, just health, or if it's just that, I don't know. That's what it feels like. It's like he bows out. Like he's just like, no.
Oh.
And everybody else is like, and it may be health. It may be, I don't know. I don't even see him as part of, I don't know when the convention is going to be now, but I feel like it's that he's not even part of that, the whole convention.
Oh, wow.
I just don't feel, everything's off this year. So I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. I don't know how the rest of the primaries will play out. It just feels like there's this almost like, not quite panic, but close to it, where it's just like scrambling. Feels like scrambling. And then this figure, this chariot figure kind of rides in, and just like the chariot, and sort of like saves the day. And it was kind of like, why weren't we thinking this all along? He's like, of course. And is very statesman-like, very much of a statesman. And this, and I don't want to put this, this is where he comes into his own. This is where he comes into his own as a statesman. He sort of like takes up the mantle and is able to sort of run with it, or that's not the right word, is able to do it justice, because he's, and I just have chills. But I have felt, and that's why I had that weird thing, I think, about the Kennedys the other day, because I really feel like it's Joseph Kennedy the third.
Oh,
is a
interesting.
representative, I think he's in the House. There's something about people being able to get behind the Kennedy name.
Right.
There's just also this feeling of him rising in the midst of tragedy after what they just had in his thing, and he's and his humanity. in fact, he's so much like John F. Kennedy, because he's got these young kids too. There's just these parallels that I feel like everybody can get behind him. And he rises to I have like so chills. He rises to the Kennedy name, something like that.
So there's two things that that are the same that I've seen all along that kind of correspond with that. One is that if Joe Biden does get in, he stays maybe a half term, maybe one term, but it's like in and out. He's not there for very long. So that would be something that it's like it's temporary, basically, that he's even in this place. But also the other thing I keep seeing is this young man and young woman making these sweeping changes in the country.
That what?
Just boom, boom, boom. I am seeing a young man and a young woman making just like sweeping changes just around the country, just making sweeping changes. And I've seen that again and again and again. And I recently I thought, well, if Joe Biden's the nominee, maybe it's the head of the Senate and the head of the House. Maybe we take the Senate and the House, and that's where the sweeping changes are coming.
Do you think it's possible, but that you see it like Joe Biden coming in like temporarily, do you think that could be actually what we're seeing right now, like during this process where he's the presumptive nominee and then suddenly he's not, like for a short period of time, he's like everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the way that I see it isn't like I see everything from, every minute from now until that. I'm just seeing like he's in and he's out. That's what I'm seeing. So it could absolutely be that.
What the way that I see it, and it's like you said, it's like this unformed picture, but what I feel like is that the convention, what I see is like just the convention without him. And what I feel like with Kennedy is that it's like a speech, maybe before. I see it in a convention format. Maybe that's a reference to somebody else who gave a speech, but there's like something that he does or says that gets the sort of, I was going to say party leaders, but it's less the party leaders than just the party being like, why isn't this kid the nominee? And I say kid, but he's probably, I don't know, he's very young. He's probably not 40. He couldn't be 40. I don't know if he's old enough to be president, but he must be.
He must be.
But,
I think he's in his late 30s. So
But so, and it's this feeling like, it's like everything comes together. It's like he's a statesman, he's progressive. He's quite progressive, but he might be able to, some people might see him as somebody who can compromise, who's not going to be, they might be deceived about just how progressive he is, because I think he's even more progressive than, especially after this. He's like, whatever. But I just see him in and just like being like, this is the guy we can get behind. And then he's very articulate and he's very, very sharp. And Donald Trump, there's just like nothing. There's nothing that he can throw against him, like in this card. There's nothing that he can throw against him that is like, it's just like, he just like swats it off, like, like you would hope King Kong would do, but like Trump has always been able to do, but he can't anymore. He just can't. It's just, it's embarrassing how obvious it is that he's not fit when you see him next to this young, articulate, honest, humanitarian kind of guy. So that's how I kind of see it. He's just like swept in, and it's just like, it's like this. It's just like the chariot. He just like moves in, and it's almost magical, and it's what we need. And I think you're perfectly. I think that's right on. That it could definitely be arm in arm with a woman. That they sweep this together. Yeah.